This is the main news of Korea today. As soon as President Yoon returns to work on the 8th after his summer vacation, he expects to support the will of the people in any form of a lower attitude and express his intention to reflect it in state affairs, a presidential office official said on the 7th. Asked by reporters how to reform state affairs during a briefing at the presidential office, a presidential office official said, "The staff are trying to understand the will of the people through various channels as well as public opinion polls. The president feels the same way," he said. The Yoon Suk-yeol administration's national task and goal is to create a decent country where everyone lives well in accordance with the will of the people, he said, adding, "I will work harder." Regarding the personnel reshuffle of the staff, he said, "It is not easy to predict as a personnel appointment because it is entirely the decision of the personnel authority," but added, "As it has been less than 3 months since I took office, I am expected to urge the staff to work harder. Overcoming economic difficulties is the top priority," he said. "In particular, we expect the working class or the vulnerable to focus on reviving the economy so that they do not suffer from economic difficulties or suffer from poor quality of life." Although this comment is based on the premise that it is the personal opinion of the staff, it is interpreted that President Yoon will strengthen the economic move for the people's livelihood rather than the immediate personnel reshuffle. It seems to mean that it will come up with a similar position in doorstepping, which is a question and answer to commuting with reporters on the first day of returning to work. Asked if he was considering a 100-day press conference, a presidential office official said, "We are trying to create a place where we can talk to the people through the media in some form," adding, "We have not decided what format it will be or when it will be." Shin In-ho, the second deputy director of the National Security Office of the Presidential Office, offered to resign for health reasons, and President Yoon also accepted the resignation. Until his successor is decided, Defense Secretary Lim Ki-hoon will take charge of acting second deputy chief on behalf of Deputy Director Shin. Choi Youngbyum, senior presidential secretary for public relations, said at a briefing room at the Yongsan office building in Seoul on the 7th, Shin In-ho, the second deputy director of the security office, expressed his resignation for health reasons, and his resignation was accepted. Shin submitted his resignation 3 weeks ago, saying, "It is difficult to carry out my duties due to poor health." Second Deputy Chief of the Security Office is an important place to monitor the security situation, including North Korea's nuclear weapons program, and it is a place to do hard work, Choi said. "I understand that Shin's own health should not be disrupted." Chief Choi explains that although Kim Sung-han, head of the Security Office, delayed accepting the resignation, Deputy Director Shin eventually accepted the resignation letter as he revealed difficulties in performing his duties due to health reasons. Presidential senior official told reporters of God and there is no other reason than for health reasons but has given rise may result in sudden resignation. Our veteran, who was devoted to national security for decades, expected to resign from the Education Minister Deputy Prime Minister and 8th Social Baksuni in fact, was passed on to hard according to the entrance age of 5 million and restructuring be confused about the controversy. Care Services Minister posts vacant and problematic education one's problems is Shin SA, rather than building a not as soon as judgment is of the ruling party official said. The senior official of Chong Wa Day presidential staff, saying it was placed to the office of the presidency should be the strongest will to regain public trust of the people with respect to please watch what we do reportedly express its position clear. Deputy Prime Minister Park, restructuring issues with the million admissions 5 years of age school abolish foreign presentation to the controversial and been asked to leave his resignation. Yoon Suk-yeol, the president listened to several from members of the holiday season last week and reportedly the strand with the Park of the future of Deputy Prime Minister. Accordingly, the Deputy Prime Minister is Yoon Park to 9th, in accordance with the will of the President raised the possibility to resign before the Assembly's Education Committee. Deputy Prime Minister Park Yoon Park is President, Personnel, which the nomination, without confirmation hearing the media and opposition attacked by a hard time. At the time of the appointment of Deputy Prime Minister also said. Because of this not admit the failure are also established that Yoon President. The inauguration of the Emergency Committee and leadership at the same time People's Power automatic dismissal as the representative of the planned Ijinzok to legal action, including an injunction in court. Ijinzok the leader of the 9th National Committee opposed changing the legal action quickly pass a vote of Mie Yongan said. Ijinzok Seoul asking whether or not to take legal action on June 7, the party leader will be an injunction in the newspaper said. Ijinzok party leader was also about timing of the time, the committee immediately endorsed Mie Yongan it said. Called the National Standing Committee the relay after the rivals Supreme Council, the party leader Ijinzok a resolution, the National Standing Committee and the former administration reportedly after a legal review procedures divided into stages. Some have also raised the possibility of legal action from the introduction of the Ethics Committee's disciplinary plan to the entire process, but it is expected to focus only on the forced dismissal of the representative position due to the launch of the Emergency Committee. Since the beginning of the Democratic Party's presidential race, Lee Jae-myung has become a reality. Candidate Lee Jae-myung won the first regional primary on the 6th with 74.8% of the votes in Gangwon, Daegu, and Gyeong Sangbuk-do, and continued to dominate with more than 70% of the votes in the Jeju and Incheon primaries on the 7th. As the party leader, Lee Jae-myung has been solidified since the beginning of the regional primary, attention is being paid to whether candidates Park Yong-jin and Kang Hoon-sik, who do not have a suitable anti-war card, will reignite the candidates' unification in the name of generational change. However, the combined approval ratings of the two candidates are far short of Lee Jae-myung's approval ratings, and it is unclear whether the unification will lead to synergy based on the realistic judgment that completing the race will contribute to political career rather than resigning in the middle. As Lee was expected to win a landslide victory in the right-wing vote, which reflects 40% of all electors, some observers say that the situation could change in the mid to late-term elections, 30%, and the general public opinion poll, 25%. Representative votes, which account for 30% of the electorate, and public opinion polls, which account for 25%, are conducted in the middle or late part of the primary. North Korea's Supreme People's Assembly's Standing Committee held the 14th plenary session at Mansudae Shrine in Pyongyang on the 7th and made the decision, the Rodong Sinmun, the organ of the Workers' Party of Korea, reported on the 8th. The Supreme People's Assembly will discuss issues related to the adoption of the Socialist Rural Development Act and the Garden Greening Act and organizational issues. The newspaper said that the Supreme People's Assembly's meeting was convened and agenda items such as the Drug Act, the Law on Preventing Violations of Procedures, the Self-Defense Security Act, and the revision and supplementation of the Space Development Act were presented. The plenary session of the Supreme People's Assembly was held by Choi Ryong-ha, the chairman of the Standing Committee, and standing members including Kang Yoon-sok, Park Young-il, and Secretary General Ko Gil-sun attended. North Korea announced on the 8th that it will revise the Space Development Act. North Korea seems to have been stimulated by South Korea's successful launch of the first lunar orbiter Danuri. According to the North Korean Central News Agency on the 8th, the 21st plenary session of the 14th Standing Committee of the North Supreme People's Assembly was held at Mansudae Capital in Pyongyang on the 7th. At the meeting, issues related to the revision and supplementation of the Space Development Act were put on the agenda. The Korean Central News Agency introduced, the basic principles of space development, procedures, and methods of implementation have been detailed and embodied so that space development activities can be secured more legally. It is noteworthy that the revision of the law will follow the success of the launch of the Korean lunar orbiter Danuri. North Korea is developing space with the aim of launching its own spy satellite. In addition, the Pharmaceutical Affairs Act and the Self-Defense Security Act, which were dealt with at the meeting, drew attention. The drug law strictly establishes systems and order in drug production, certification, storage, supply, sales, and use, regulating principles to ensure that medicines are thoroughly used to protect and promote the health of the people, the North said. This is interpreted as a follow-up measure to solve the drug problem in North Korea that arose in the COVID-19 situation. On the 7th, Park Min-sik, Minister of Patriots and Veterans Affairs, said, "It is time for North Korea's propaganda media to raise the level of the wall to commemorate the Korean War dead in the US. I want to ask what is so scary to North Korea, which is senselessly frantic, using the expressions of courtesy and reason as glorification, fraud, and clown drama," Park said, linking a domestic article that criticized the Wall of Memory the previous day. 72 years ago, countless young people around the world jumped into the saturation of war to protect the Republic of Korea, he said. It is courtesy and duty as a human being regardless of political ideology to commemorate the sacrifice and dedication. I want to convey what Pericles of Athens said in the past, which is already more than 2,000 years old, Minister Park said. No words can replace their virtues, praise for the fallen soldiers. In a commentary titled Reviewing the Ugly Confrontation Clown of Sangjian and Jugu, North Korea's external propaganda media said, the names written on the Wall of Memory are a reflection on the status of our republic, which was lost and surrendered. The names of 36,634 U.S. soldiers killed in action and 7,174 Katasaw killed in action were inscribed on the wall of the memorial, which was unveiled at the Korean War Veterans Memorial Park in Washington, D.C. on the 27th of last month. Recently, a soldier from the Navy's military police force was put on trial for praising the North Korean regime and possessing expressions of transfer. On the 8th, the Navy Prosecutor's Office announced that it indicted a soldier belonging to the military police force of a naval unit, on charges of violating Article 7 of the National Security Act on the 25th of last month. A is suspected of posting videos and writings promoting the North Korean regime on the online community before and after enlistment and possessing transfer expressions. In particular, other soldiers were allowed to watch propaganda videos of North Korea using the barracks living room TV. The circumstances in which A was directly linked to North Korea have yet to be determined. The Navy said, the soldier is currently being charged with violating the national security law and is being tried in a military court without detention, adding, we will strictly deal with him based on laws and regulations according to the outcome of the trial. China's military drill to surround Taiwan, which will be held on the occasion of U.S. House of Representatives Speaker Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan, virtually ended on the 7th. However, China is expected to continue its military pressure on Taiwan. China's state-run news agency Xinhua said the People's Liberation Army will conduct important military exercises and live ammunition from noon on the 4th to noon on the 7th in 6 areas of the sea and air that have been set up to surround Taiwan. Taiwan said that China added a training area and notified that the training period would be extended to 8 days, but it was not confirmed by the Chinese Ministry of National Defense or state media. According to the plan, the Chinese military's Eastern Light Bulb, which controls Taiwan, continued joint training in the sea and sky around Taiwan on the 7th, and only said, we focused on checking the ground and long-range airstrike capabilities of the joint firepower. On the first day of the drill, the Chinese military launched 11 Dongfeng ballistic missiles into waters around northern, southern, and eastern Taiwan, poured long-range artillery into the Taiwan Strait, and staged a simultaneous fire demonstration against the United States and Taiwan. In addition, various fighter jets and warships crossed the middle line of the Taiwan Strait day after day. More than 100 military aircraft crossed the midline, an unofficial border between China and Taiwan, from July 4 to 6. As a result, tensions rose in the Taiwan Strait as the Taiwanese military immediately dispatched fighter jets and issued warning broadcasts, while operating an air defense missile system to track the aircraft. On the 7th, he released a photo of a Hongfeng-2 anti-ship missile that can attack China's strategic targets such as China's Sangxia Dam and a video of closely monitoring the Chinese destroyer Monshan, which is sailing near Taiwan. Taiwan's Ministry of National Defense has defined China's military drill to surround Taiwan as a mock exercise to attack Taiwan. Even after the Chinese military's anti-Taiwan drill, tension in the Taiwan Strait is expected to continue. Polls show that Americans' perception of the economy is deteriorating. According to ABC Broadcasting on the 7th, ABC Broadcasting and Ipsos surveyed 665 U.S. adults for 2 days from the last 5th, and 69% of the respondents said the U.S. economy is deteriorating. ABC reported that 82% of the respondents said they were getting worse in the same question as in the year 2008 years. 12% said the economy was improving, and 18% said it was the same. President Joe Biden's approval rating for state affairs also continued to be the lowest at 37%. Only 29% supported the inflation response, and 69% said they were dissatisfied. When asked about their intention to vote in the upcoming midterm elections in November, 75% of Republican supporters said they would vote, while 69% of Democratic supporters said yes. Unaffiliated voters, who have no party to support, have expressed their intention to vote in the midterm elections. With 3 months ahead of the midterm elections, Americans are pessimistic about the economic situation and negative about the future, ABC said. President Biden is also experiencing sluggish approval ratings. According to the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, and Transport on the 8th, related ministries will announce housing supply measures after deliberation and resolution by the real estate-related ministers meeting on the 9th. The main content is to secure more than 2.5 million households, including those planned by the previous government, within the term of office to focus on the Seoul metropolitan area. Specifically, there are 1.42 million public housing units, 470,000 reconstruction and redevelopment units, 200,000 urban and station complex development units, 180,000 public and vehicle base complex development units, and 100,000 small-scale maintenance projects. In particular, it is expected to allocate up to 1.5 million households in the Seoul metropolitan area, which is suffering from a shortage of supply. Various regulations are revised to facilitate supply. First, the Reconstruction Excess Profit Recovery System, which is holding back reconstruction projects, will be reorganized. This system is a system that imposes a levy of up to 50% if the profits of members from the reconstruction project exceed 30 million won. It was introduced in 2006 during the Roh Moo-hyun government, but was suspended and revived in 2018 by the Moon Jae-in government. There was a strong backlash that excessive taxation is imposed on unrealized profits. It is also expected that the measures will include easing regulations related to safety diagnosis. President Yoon proposed measures to reduce the proportion of structural safety from the current 50% to 30% and increase the proportion of residential environment from 15% to 30%. Relaxation of safety diagnosis standards is possible only by revising the government's enforcement ordinance, which can immediately affect the market than the reconstruction excess profit recovery system. There was also a pledge to supply 100,000 new households through the Special Act on Ilji New Town. The Ministry of Land, Infrastructure and Transport has already ordered research services for the reconstruction of the new city. It will also include a plan to supply youth housing, including the first house in the station area. Financial authorities have begun to grasp the overall status of abnormal transactions in the wake of banks' abnormal foreign exchange transactions. The move is aimed at seeing it as a whole, as foreign exchange transactions worth trillions of won have exposed loopholes in banks' transaction systems. The Financial Supervisory Service will analyze the results of the inspection, which includes suspected foreign exchange transactions submitted by banks on the 20th of last month. The Financial Supervisory Service had a period of inspection suspension until the last oil. Based on the submitted data, it will decide whether to go to additional inspections if necessary. Transactions subject to inspection are worth $5.37 billion, about KRW 7 trillion. Earlier last month, the Financial Supervisory Service asked the banking sector to check and report whether there are any large amounts of abnormal foreign exchange transactions, as in the cases of Woori Bank and Shinyan Bank. At the same time, it has requested to report the results by grasping the current status of not only foreign exchange but also whether there are abnormal transactions in other areas. As the abnormal situation has been clear in the foreign exchange transactions that have been revealed so far, the intention is to look at whether this has occurred in general transactions. According to the progress of bank inspections on large overseas remittances announced by the Financial Supervisory Service at the end of last month, the amount of foreign currency remittances reached a provisional 4.1 trillion won, as long as Shinyan Bank and Woori Bank have identified. It is twice as large as the previously known 2 trillion won range. The Financial Supervisory Service held a video conference with the heads of the Foreign Currency Department of OD Bank once last year and asked for caution, but it failed to prevent such an accident. An official from the Financial Supervisory Service said, in addition to the self-inspection of foreign exchange transactions, banks ordered to report suspected abnormal transactions, adding, "We requested supplementation again for the insufficient data submitted by banks, and will decide whether to conduct further inspections again after internal evaluation." Meanwhile, commercial banks are preparing their own systems before the Financial Supervisory Service comes out for additional inspections. Hana Bank will form a team that intensively checks the adequacy of foreign currency remittances at its headquarters. Woori Bank intensively organizes the obligation to check and store foreign exchange-related documents at each branch and the follow-up management after overseas investment and remittance. It also decided to computerize foreign exchange documents stored in paper. Shinyan Bank also posted an official letter to all employees last month that said they could be punished for violating the Foreign Exchange Transaction Act. The government plans to launch a new start fund next month that will reduce the principal of loans from vulnerable groups who cannot afford to pay off their debts by up to 90%, but the banking sector is reluctant to mass-produce insolvent debtors and moral hazard. According to the financial sector on the 8th, commercial bank credit managers gathered at the National Bank Association in Yeonggu, Seoul on the 2nd to discuss the plan to implement debt adjustment for small business owners and self-employed people. Earlier, the government decided to create a new start fund worth 30 trillion won. The key is to purchase insolvent bonds from financial firms for small business owners and self-employed people affected by the spread of COVID-19 to reduce 60 to 90% of their principal and pay back their existing loans by dividing them by 3 to 5% for up to 20 years a year. It was pointed out that moral hazard could occur in the banking sector. It is pointed out that self-employed and small business owners will intentionally delay and try to write off their debts. On top of that, there were concerns that self-employed and small business owners who faithfully pay their debts could be discriminated against. In particular, credit managers in the banking sector agreed that the reduction rate of principal, which reaches 90%, should be lowered from 10 to 50%. It is pointed out that writing off up to 90% of debt can cause moral hazard at an excessive level. At the same time, credit managers pointed out that even if it is overdue for 10 days, it will be included as a subject of debt adjustment. According to the government plan, the standard for debtors who are concerned about insolvency is a person who has more than 10 days to less than 90 days in arrears of any one of the financial company's debts. Even if the debt is paid late for 10 days, it will be included in the debt adjustment list, which will reduce overdue interest rates and lower interest rates from 3 to 5% per year. In response, credit managers suggested that the 10th should be adjusted to more than 30 days. An official from a commercial bank said, "We are concerned about losses as not only the degree of debt relief of the New Start Fund is excessive, but also it will be difficult to recover insolvent bonds." The government is considering expanding and applying quota tariffs that temporarily lower the tariff rate to some agricultural imports. The move is aimed at implementing additional price stabilization measures as demand for high-quality products is expected to increase ahead of Chuseok amid fluctuations in table prices, with prices of agricultural, livestock, and fisheries products rising to around 7% last month. According to the Ministry of Strategy and Finance on the 7th, the government will announce measures to stabilize people's livelihoods this week. The measure comes in about a month after the stabilization plan for people's livelihoods to reduce the burden of high prices, which calls for applying 0% of allocation tariffs to livestock products such as beef last month. Measures to stabilize people's livelihoods are expected to focus on managing product prices during the peak holiday season. This is because food prices have risen sharply recently, with prices of vegetables and other products soaring to 7.1% last month. Food prices are also on the rise overall. According to the National Statistical Office, the price index for food and non-alcoholic beverages rose 8.0% last month from a year earlier, the biggest increase since last year's carryover. The government plans to designate and manage items that have soared in price as special management items in addition to the top 10 peak Chuseok products such as cabbage, radish, apples, pears, eggs, beef, and pork. The government is reportedly considering applying additional quota tariffs to some of the agricultural products. Currently, allocation tariffs are already being applied to green onions, barley, oats, corn, and soybean for oil. Allocation tariffs refer to applying a low tax rate at the level of the duty-free rate up to a certain amount when importing a specific product, and applying a high tax rate for more than that amount. The government is also considering expanding the issuance of discount coupons for agricultural, livestock and fisheries products. Last month, the government invested 50 billion won in reserve funds for discount coupons for agricultural, livestock and fisheries products, which support up to 20% discounts on 10,000 won per person. In addition, the government is considering supplying cabbages imported through the Korea Agro-Fishery Food Distribution Corporation to companies that produce processed cabbage products such as kimchi or increasing the supply of high-quality products. The measures are also expected to include support measures for vulnerable people who are more affected by inflation. In order to support the demand for holiday funds for small business owners and small and medium-sized enterprises, it is known that new special fund loans and guarantees are being considered through state-run banks and commercial banks. However, some point out that the effect of price measures centered on allocation tariffs is limited. In the case of pork and coffee, it was evaluated that the FTA has already provided a significant portion of tariff benefits, so the effect of price cuts is not significant. In addition, it is analyzed that the increased burden of import prices at the high exchange rate is offsetting the effect of allocation tariffs. In this situation, it is pointed out that a thorough market inspection is essential for the government to increase the effect of allocation tariffs. As of Sunday, the number of new COVID-19 confirmed patients reached the highest level in 17 weeks, and the quarantine authorities are quickly approaching about 150,000 people observed as peak. Even though it is usually a weekend when the number of confirmed cases decreases, the possibility of reaching its peak as early as this week has increased with more than 100,000 confirmed cases. In particular, it is in line with the government's prediction that it will peak immediately after the summer vacation season. The Central Disease Control Headquarters of the Korea Centers for Disease Control and Prevention announced that as of 0 o'clock on the 7th, there were 105,507 new confirmed cases of COVID-19. There are 105,023 domestic outbreaks and 484 overseas inflows. On the 6th of the previous day, the number of confirmed cases decreased by 5,159 from 116,666, and more than 100,000 people have been confirmed for 6 days. As of Sunday, it was the largest in 17 weeks since April 10, when 164,453 confirmed cases occurred. The number of confirmed patients increased 43% to 31,918 from 73,589 on July 31, a week ago, and 61.4% from 65,374 on July 24, a week ago, to 41,133. The one-week increase is larger than the 1.35-fold increase in the one-week period on the 6th of the previous day, indicating that the trend curve has been steeped in the past few days. The quarantine authorities and experts believe that within 200,000 people, specifically 150,000 people, can form the peak of this reproliferation. Police arrested a man in his 20s who posted a message on an internet bulletin board saying, "We will bomb Jamsil Sports Complex." More than 1,000 people, including professional baseball teams, were evacuated in a preview of the attack. Songpa police station in Seoul said on the 7th that it is investigating a man in his 20s who wrote a message saying, "I will detonate a bomb 3 times in the morning." A introduced himself as a Sunni extremist terrorist organization Islamic State is warrior. After the article was posted, the police sent 10 personnel from the Seoul Metropolitan Police Agency's commandos to the scene to search for explosives and other dangerous substances. Songpa Fire Station received a joint response request at around 10:19 am and deployed 14 vehicles and 58 people. The search found no suspected bomb material. The police found out that A lived in Goyang, Gyeonggi-do, through tracking the IP address of the post. The police, who visited in person and confirmed A's identity, did not secure his identity considering that he was intellectually disabled. A police official said, "We believe that he is a person without a real threat, but we plan to investigate the details of the posting and determine whether to punish him or not." About 1,000 workers who were preparing to hold the Seoul Festa 2022 and the LG Twins squad who were practicing once evacuated in a notice of terrorism. After a quarrel between the bus drivers over parking problems, they hung their opponents from their cars and drove to hurt them. The incident occurred on a road in Waiseong, Gyeonggi Province, on the evening of the 7th. The black box video released showed a man hanging from the driver's window of a running bus. The man struggled in the air as if not to fall, but soon fell down. The man who hit his head on the asphalt road falls to the ground. The bus just passed by without the man's relief. The victim was a bus driver in his 70s and was taken to a hospital with a serious head injury. Police have arrested a bus driver in his 40s who injured a bus driver in his 70s by running with him hanging from a vehicle. The perpetrator reportedly stated in a police investigation to the effect that there was a dispute with B over parking at the city bus stop. The police are investigating the details of the incident while booking A on charges of special injury. An incumbent police officer who refused to take a sobriety test after drinking and causing a car accident has been booked. According to the police on the 8th, Songdong Police Station in Seoul is investigating Sheriff A of Gwangjin Police Station, who is suspected of violating the Road Traffic Act. Sheriff A is accused of refusing a police request for a breathalyzer test after hitting a taxi while driving a vehicle near Sangwon-simni Station in Songdong-gu around 2 am on the 6th. The police, who were dispatched after receiving a report of an accident witness, tried to measure the degree of drunkenness of the police officer A, but it was found that the police officer A did not comply. The taxi driver was reportedly not seriously injured. According to the Road Traffic Act, refusal to measure alcohol is subject to imprisonment for more than 1 year to 5 years or a fine of more than 5 million won to less than 20 million won. In the case of drunk driving, the punishment is relatively weaker than the refusal to take a sobriety test due to imprisonment for more than 1 year and less than 2 years or a fine of more than 5 million won and less than 10 million won. However, if the blood alcohol concentration is more than 0.2%, or if you have a history of drunk driving punishment, you will be punished with imprisonment for more than 2 years and less than 5 years, or a fine of more than 10 million won and less than 20 million won. A public official who was caught taking pictures of women's bodies on the subway and was fined a salary cut filed a lawsuit against disciplinary action, but lost. At the trial, he claimed, the passengers on the train equipped with CCTV implicitly agreed to take pictures of themselves, but it was not accepted. The Seoul Administrative Court's Administrative Division 3 recently ruled that A lost the plaintiff in a lawsuit filed against the head of his agency, asking him to cancel the salary reduction. In May 2020, A secretly filmed the woman's body using a mobile phone silent camera application on the subway train on the way to work, and was caught by the victim's report. He was found to have repeated similar crimes several times since early 2020. He denied the charges, including initializing his cell phone after receiving a police request for attendance, but admitted to the crime, saying, "I feel sorry for the victim woman" when the police presented the digital forensic results. The prosecution, however, cleared A of charges due to insufficient evidence, saying that he did not film the victim's specific body parts. The affiliated agency imposed a 1-month pay cut on A for violating his duty to maintain dignity. A filed an administrative lawsuit, saying the disciplinary action was unfair. A's side said in the trial, the police forcefully questioned and made a statement that seemed to admit illegal filming, adding, "We only took a landscape photo and never took it for a specific woman." However, the court saw that the disciplinary action was reasonable. He pointed out that there is no reason to initialize the mobile phone if A confessed to the investigative agency and the victim's statement were credible, and A actually only took pictures of the scenery. As a public official, a high level of morality, ethics, and duty to maintain dignity are required, the court said. The degree of misconduct cannot be considered light just because the investigative agency has been cleared of charges. Korea's college entrance exam, which will be held on November 17, will be held on November 17, and 100 days will be held on November 17. Now is the time to study for the completion of the CSAT while preparing for early admission applications. You should check what you have studied so far and make a good study plan for the remaining 100 days. How to study in the future will determine the success or failure of the college scholastic ability test. Rather than studying new content, it is better to organize it around the difficult parts of the contents that have been studied so far. It is important to wrap up through EBS textbooks and solve many kinds of problems. It is also helpful to use the organized wrong answer notes and solve the actual mock test questions several times. When solving a problem, don't pay too much attention to the scores so that you can maintain your sense of problem solving. If you are in the top ranks, you should practice solving basic questions as quickly and accurately as possible to reduce mistakes and secure time to solve high-level questions. The median should prevent accidental mistakes in the known problem rather than making mistakes in the unknown. If you are at the bottom of the list, it is better to answer all the questions you can answer first and check the concepts and ways of solving the wrong questions through incorrect answers rather than sticking to the difficult questions. On Monday, the 8th, heavy rain will fall across the country, including in the central region, due to the influence of the stagnant front formed in the north. The expected precipitation on the 8th and 9th is 100 to 300 mm in the metropolitan area, inland and mountainous areas in Gangwon Province, and 5 to 30 mm in the eastern coast of Gangwon Province, Chungcheong Province, and northern Gyeongbuk Province. There will be more than 150 mm of rain on the east coast of Gangwon Province and northern Chungcheong Province for 2 days. There will be 5 to 40 mm of showers in southern Jeollabuk-do, eastern Jeollanam-do inland, southern inland in Gyeongsangbuk-do, and western inland in Gyeongsangnam-do. As much rain is expected in North Korea adjacent to the border, it is necessary to prepare for the possible damage caused by the sudden rise in water levels of the Imjin River and Handong River in northern Gyeonggi Province and Yongso, Gangwon Province. As it rains, the heat will slow down for a while, with heat wave warnings eased or lifted in some areas. Morning lows are forecast to be 24 to 29 degrees and daytime highs to be 26 to 35 degrees. The concentration of fine dust will show a good level in the entire region due to smooth atmospheric diffusion and precipitation. Thank you for watching today. Please subscribe and like.